It's spectacular. Is there anything better than your own garden, home farm? Today's Friday, March 31st. As promised, here's my update on my farmer's friend greenhouse garden. I've got tomato plants. These are indeterminate. I have determinate tomato plants. I've got eggplant, bell peppers. I've got several varieties of cucumbers, and I have summer squash. If you stick around towards the end, I'll show you all how I'm trellising up, removing suckers, things of that nature on the cucumbers and the indeterminate tomato plants. All right, let me grab the camera. We'll take a look at what's going on inside my farmer's friend greenhouse. Okay. This is the outer bed. And as I say, my trellis is about 6 feet, so I went with a determinate tomato. I'm not going to prune any of these suckers off of these because they'll grow more like a bush. They might be a little close in spacing. We'll see how that goes. If necessary, I'll trim it. They look like they're starting to form where the flowers are. In fact, they're definitely there. I do have my lettuce. This stuff is amazing. Every night we're harvesting a garden salad. It's so fresh. Man, you can taste how organic. Oh, there's my big bumblebee. He's right over here. He's after the flowers on that happy rich broccoli. That's another reason why I don't want to take those broccoli plants out yet. I've seen that bee go from there to the cucumbers and tomatoes, so he's doing exactly what I want him to do. I'm trying to attract my pollinators and have them do some work for me. Anyway, I have lettuce on this outer edge. These are my determinate tomatoes. And a little bit further down, I've got eggplant and my fennel. These are in the ground, not quite 2 weeks yet. I planted the center row before, a few days. And once they hit the ground, I inoculate the soil. So I take some seaweed solution and I'll put it down in the hole and I'll get some on the roots. I'll plant my tomato plant and then I'll water in the plant with a little bit of that seaweed solution. And after about 2 days, these just take off. It's incredible when you do that. It really helps, I believe, eliminate that transplant shock that you might normally get. All right, let's take a look at the next row over, which is the long center bed. All right, inevitably I usually overplant. This is our home farm, and we grow these vegetables for us. We share it with our family and friends. I'm gonna have way too many cherry tomatoes. But that's just the way it goes. They germinated really well, so I have an abundance of cherry tomato plants. You can see the flowers here. They're starting to open up. And because they're a small tomato, I'm expecting to be able to harvest these in just a few weeks. They're all just thriving. Again, I planted it the same way, inoculated the soil. I buried my trellis string in the ground. I have a height of a little over 8 feet. Eventually I'm going to switch to a hook and wicket, so as these get taller I can slide them and lower them and not run out of height, so to speak. But I figure we only have a couple of months before I get into my fall garden, so it should be adequate. As they get bigger, I start trimming off the suckers. I'll show you some video of that a little bit later, and from there I start to use these clips. They clamp on to the trellis string and they go around the stem of the tomato plant. You could also just twist the plant around the string like that. Okay, so there's several ways. Eventually I'll eliminate the plastic here. I'm not a big fan of the plastic. They are very effective from a cost perspective, and the way they actually hold the tomato plant there. Now, as I say, I'm going to get rid of suckers. Here's one right here. It's nice and tender, so I can just break that off. A lot of times I'll take the suckers when they're bigger and I'll root them, and we'll have another tomato plant for free, and that will go to fruit much quicker. So these are my cherry tomatoes. We'll take a walk down a little further. I'll show you some of the other varieties I have. All right, I had to put my hood back up. The sun's getting strong. Again, I've talked about this before, but the sun is right over here, but the diffusion of light with this greenhouse plastic. I did also install a white 30% shade cloth over the top, and it's just wonderful. It's a little bit cooler in here, so far so good. All right, next variety of tomatoes. These are the Florentina tomato plants. A couple of years ago, I was heading down to the Fort Lauderdale area for the birth of one of my grandchildren. My oldest grandchild, Kendra, accompanied me. We were surprising my daughter, her husband, and my wife to come down for the birth of that grandchild. They didn't know we were coming. Along the way, as we're heading down to South Florida, I stopped to visit a friend of mine, Florentina. She had recently relocated from another state, and it just so happened that we'd be passing through the town that she moved to. And I had brought her, I think, some herb plants, things like that, and she had given me an envelope of tomato seeds that were from her nono. And I believe originally from Romania. I'm not sure if they went to Romania from Italy, not quite sure, but I came across these seeds as I was starting my seeds for the spring of 2023 garden, and they germinated. I was blown away. These plants are thriving. I already see the formation of the fruit or the flowers. So again, this is I'm calling Florentina tomato. Okay, so let's move on down and we'll take a look at the next variety. Look at how beautiful, right? These are my beefsteak tomatoes. They're quite small compared to the other tomato plants I have, and the reason is I did not start these seeds till several weeks after the planting of the seeds for what's growing further down the bed here. They just went in the ground yesterday. I'd anticipate in a week they're probably going to be up to here. These are Roma tomatoes. My son had extra seeds, I should say seedlings, and I've just started to pot them up. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Hopefully we'll find a home for them. This is a bell pepper. I'll probably plant this one in a smaller greenhouse. As I said, I have one, maybe two beds, and you can see the roots are starting to come out of the bottom. So again, this was potted up from a wind strip tray. These are onions. They're long overdue to be transplanted, but what I do is I push these out and then I'll pot them up. This is a 4-inch pot, and once the roots start to come out of the bottom and I feel like I've got a nice root system established, I go ahead and plant them, or I'll pot them up. And I'll give you an example of one I potted up. This is a cherry tomato that I just have no room to plant, and I decided to pot it up. Those are suckers right there. We're going to get rid of all of this. And my son actually yesterday said that he definitely wants these. So we'll get rid of these suckers here. But that'd probably be the next size I'd pot up to. And either they'd get planted. I do have some cucumbers I planted in my food forest. Only because they were looking really good, and I figured why not. I'm not going to do that with the tomatoes, but there you go. That's another cherry tomato. You can see the sucker right there, right? We want to get rid of those. All right, let's move on to the cucumbers. Man, is that good. Nothing better than a homegrown fig. Cheers to my buddy Neil Rogers, who encouraged me to start growing some figs. He's up on Long Island. He's got 5 fig trees that he got from his father-in-law, an Italian gentleman that I think had a little over 2 acres worth of fruits and vegetables growing. Neil tells me he was an inspiration to him. Neil also says that cuttings from his father-in-law's fig trees that are at his house are in several other states across the U.S. So what a cool story, right? Whether it's seeds like I got from Florentina, I also have my Sicilian tomato seeds that I got from one of my mom's neighbor up on Long Island. You have Neil with his fig tree story. I just love it. It's like old world immigrants that came to the U.S. They brought those seeds and plants with them, and they carry on those traditions here in the U.S. If you haven't had a fresh fig, you ought to get you some of this. All right, I just had Stacy call me. Want to know what I'm doing? Told her I'm playing in my garden. What do we have here? Oh, more beefsteaks. Got to find a place for those. Oh, I've been out of basil, so in these epic 6-cell seed starting trays, you can see the roots are starting to grow out of the bottom. I'm going to have to pot these up soon. Some basil. Now, to our cucumber plants. Okay, I've got several varieties. I have a Japanese style right over here. I'm not sure if it's in view of the camera. This is a seedless type. This is a Marketmore cucumbers, the seeds. My friend Kevin from Epic Gardening, where I get my birdies raised garden beds, he recently acquired Botanical Interest Seed Company. I believe it's out of Colorado. And he was kind enough to send me some Marketmore cucumbers, which interestingly was the first vegetable he's ever tried to grow that led him on his journey. And you all should check out his website and his YouTube videos. As I was saying before, my iPad ran out of storage. Gotta love it. This is why these videos are getting farther and farther in between. I've lost my cameraman. I don't know this happens. Anyway, as I was saying, I planted the Marketmore cucumbers to honor my friend Kevin and see if I could do a little bit better. He didn't have success his first go round. I think he's quite successful now, however. All right, that's a Marketmore right here. So I have several Marketmore slicing right here. Look at the height of this, okay? I'm 5'10". It's probably up to my chin, so maybe 5 foot, just over 5 foot. They're just thriving. I'm continuing to get rid of my suckers. All right, I want to focus my energy on the cucumbers. There's a nice one right there. And as I say, I'll show you a little bit of me doing that. This was earlier in the week when these plants were much smaller, but I'll show you how I maintain some of the suckers on the tomatoes and cucumbers. Go a little bit further down the line here. Nice cucumbers, more slicing, and I have some pickling further down. Let's check out what's going on in the back row. All right, that was a little bit of a challenge getting there. These went in the ground about a week ago. These are my summer squash. So basically it's a zucchini. I just put a clip along each one of the strings so that when they're tall enough, I don't have to grab my bag. Again, I have my wire trellis. Let's say it's about 6 feet, a little taller. I've got my little markers right here. Basically, I'm taking the marker, I punch a hole. I don't have it on me, but a little 1-hole puncher. and then I just loop the string through it. So I can keep an eye on these. I do have a permanent marker, so if they start to fade, I can go over it and ensure that I know exactly the variety of squash I have here. Let's see, further on down is my Meyer lemon tree. I've got a couple of lemons growing on it. I'll have to see if I can keep it contained here. I'd like to keep it inside the greenhouse this way over the winter. Maybe it'll do well and I'll have a little bit better production. And I have 2 fig trees and a rosemary plant. I think I'm going to actually put those in the ground on the other side of the Meyer lemon. Again, looking at, I'll call it the backside of my cucumber plants. They're just thriving. Again, I've got the shade cloth up. It's working out great. Let's take a look at the bed right behind you. Okay, here's one of my lettuce beds. Look at how spectacular those heads of lettuce are. I pretty much go around and I just harvest the lower leaves. I do have some Greek oregano over here. I've talked about that. This stuff smells amazing. It reminds me of a thyme plant. It smells very lemony. Speaking of which, there's my thyme plant right here. This is my favorite herb, I think. We use it fresh all the time. It's spectacular. Real quick, I just want to show you my mulberry tree. This is a Thai dwarf. This guy's showing off here. He's just loaded up. I'm going to go quick here. This is the outer bed. This is my lettuce. Several varieties. I'm sorry about the shadow there. And there's what's left of my kale plants. And right over there are the bell peppers. We go this way. There's more eggplant. There's 2 more eggplant. Let me see if I can show you the size of this fennel. Look at that. Huge. They're just huge. There's another cluster right there. Okay. There's a look at the lettuce. Oh, I forgot to mention. Right in there, I've planted, let me get that to focus. Those are marigolds I've planted throughout in between my tomato plants. There'll be more going in. Those are from seeds I harvested from last year's. And those green there, those are zinnias. They self-seed. And I'm going to try and wrap this up. We're going to go quick. Sweet potatoes. I'm going to make slips out of these vines. These are the Market More cucumbers. I still have broccoli growing in this raised bed here. This is the Happy Rich broccoli. I have to clean this bed out. I have beets in here. You could see the size of those. So I still have several beets left. These are more cherry tomatoes. There's another lettuce bed. Gorgeous. These are eggplants. Back over there, I've got bell pepper, another Florentina tomato, and back over here, yesterday, I planted a, that's I believe a beefsteak, bell pepper, eggplant, and there's an old eggplant there. Okay, let's get out of this greenhouse. He's making love to my broccoli rich. Actually, it's Happy Rich broccoli. He loves these flowers. Spectacular. I'm trying to grow my cucumbers in a single vine. So any suckers like this right here that are between this flower and the main stem, I'm going to be eliminating and see if that helps with the cucumber production. To show how quick these can get away from you, I trimmed these about 3-4 days ago. Here's another sucker. There's another one right there, and there's a cucumber there, but because it's so low, I'm going to cut that one out, and that should put more energy to this one. There's another sucker has to go. I've got to go down and do my 14 cucumber plants. I'm on my second cucumber plant. By the way, these are slicing. I have pickling and a Japanese seedless. There's another one, and you could see how quick they grow. And if I left this alone, it would make another vine and produce. You can see it already has a small cucumber there. So that's taken a lot of energy. And as I say, I want to keep these on a single vine. Third plant, there's an even bigger sucker and an even bigger tomato. So again, we want to get rid of those. I'm going to get rid of that cucumber down there, and that'll focus all the energy up to the top. Now I'm working on my tomato plants. This happens to be a Johnny seed cherry tomato, and I'm going to remove the lower leaves and anything else that doesn't look healthy. And if there are any suckers, same thing, they'll get removed. And I'm going to be putting clips up a little higher now. Second tomato plant. Here's a good example of suckers just starting. I'll be removing those as well as the lower leaves. And I'm out of there. And then we'll be installing another clip. Keeping in mind this is my home farm, so we're not trying to get a huge production for sale. It's more for our consumption, but you could see there's where the flowers and ultimately the tomato fruit will form. So every time I get rid of suckers, there's a little one right there, it's going to put more energy up to this area here. Also, trimming the bottom leaves will prevent any splash. Not that I'm getting a whole lot, but it just makes for a healthier plant. I did want to mention, sometimes I'll take the clip that's down low and I'll just bring it on up just a little bit. As I work my way down, I wanted to show that I've interplanted marigolds. These are from seeds I harvested from last year's marigolds. Simplest thing to do, but I've interplanted them. And as I say, I'm working my way down, getting rid of suckers. You could see we have more potential fruit. And we've got to work our way down here. I've got about 17 tomato plants in this row. By the way, when these suckers are really small, they're tender, they come right off. Another technique you could do versus the clips is continue to wrap the tomato vine around the trellis string. I've just removed this sucker from this cherry tomato plant. We already have flowers, and you can see I've got big suckers here with fruit on it already, or the formation of the flowers. Suckers are a perfect way to get another free tomato plant. You just break off those little stems, you dip the bottom in root hormone, stick it in your growing medium, and you'll have another plant. They'll go to production much quicker. I typically, because I guess I have an addictive personality, I keep rooting these, but I have way too many, so we're just going to discard them. Resist talking about this. When you see those little mushrooms growing, that's a sign you've got nice healthy soil. By the way, I did run my wire hoe down here. Towards the end of the bed there are a lot of zinnias growing. They're just self-seeding from the plants I had last year. I'll thin them out as I see how they grow. And again, working on these tomato plants. These are the last of the cherry tomatoes, and then I get into a variety that was gifted to me by my friend Florentina, and these seeds are from her no-no. So I've got quite a few of those growing here. I had the seeds were old, so I started multiple seeds in a tray, so I still have to thin them out. There's another big bastard right there. Look at him. Oh, even bigger than the other one. Again, this is that happy rich broccoli. Now we're working on the outer bed. This is where my determinate tomatoes are. So these will grow more like a bush. I have a much lower trellis height, maybe 6 feet as opposed to over 8 up the center. So these are indeterminate and they'll keep growing. These will get to a certain height, stop. They're more bushy. I'm not going to pull the suckers. I'll just trim any leaves down low that might not look healthy. We're getting into my eggplants. Some cells had multiple seeds germinate, so that's the weaker one. We're going to get rid of it now. I have another one right there to do. Then after the fennel, we start up with them again. I was hoping to get some seeds from these Happy Rich broccoli, and that's what we're looking for right there. So I'm going to give this just a little bit more and we'll be getting it out of here. There's still broccoli growing and this stuff is excellent raw. I have a little bit of escarole. You could see it's getting stressed, but when I peel back those leaves, they're still amazing. I've planted tomato plants in here. These are also a determinant. I had extra. I still have some beets growing there. So soon all this gets harvested out. I'm working on my carrot bed. I just did that front section where the pitchfork is. Maybe a foot and a half. Probably got 5 pounds of carrots. Now we've been harvesting carrots weekly for our soups and salads. I have all that to go yet. I would guess I have easy 10 pounds. That's my last bed that needs to be flipped. And this outer bed over here, I've got to thin the fennel, the kale, and I could still see that big bee over there on that Happy Rich broccoli, and the Swiss chard, and plant that out. It's going to get some bell peppers, maybe more eggplant. I do have collard greens. I've thinned those out. I have to get rid of a few more. Actually, they're all going, and I'll continue my tomatoes there. What can I say? I could stare at my garden all day. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of free time. So leave me alone, I'm busy farming. I got work to do. Seriously. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the update. I think I'm pretty much planted here. Now we're starting to work on, Stacy and I, we're starting to work on some of the hardscaping around the greenhouses, trying to make it a little bit prettier now. So I believe I've got my infrastructure where I wanted it. Not quite sure when I'll do another update. I know I owe you one on my son Gerald's raised garden that he just established, as well as his market garden. As well as his food forest. Everything's thriving there. He's got a white peach tree that's just crushing it. Anyway, that's what's going on here in beautiful, sunny Florida Zone 9B. All right, get you some of that. I'll see you at the next video.